Hello everybody and welcome to the Let's Talk podcast, the podcast where we talk about music and movies and whatever else I want to talk about that's been going on during the week. My name is Christian Doyle. I am the lead guitarist in progressive rock band SEVSONS, and I am also the sole member of the alternative rock band Cross the Line. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I really hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're into week 5 now, and I've been having a lot of fun doing it, so thank you once again for listening. We're going to kick off today once again with talking about what's going on in my band's career, life. As you guys know from the last few weeks, we announced our headline show, our first ever headline show, a couple of weeks ago. It's coming up this Saturday at the Bald-Faced Stag in Sydney. If you guys can come out and support us, that would be really cool. We really want to see as many people as we can in that venue and have a really good time. We're playing a lot of new songs. All of the songs actually are from our upcoming debut album, so make sure you come out and check that out. Moving along now, we're going to get into music news. There's been quite a bit that's gone on this week. The week started out pretty slow, but it's really gained momentum as it's gone on, and a lot of stuff has come out in singles-wise, and a couple of albums that I've listened to this week that I'm going to be reviewing, that one of them is spectacular, so get ready for that. Starting off today, progressive rock band Karnivool from Perth in Australia. They announced some shows in Western Australia and South Africa. Some just small intimate venues, and they're going to be road testing some of their new material from their upcoming 4th full-length album. Luckily, last year I was able to go and see Karnivool play their debut album Thermata in full in Sydney, and they also played some songs from their other 2 albums, and they debuted a new song on that tour, and it was great. It was a mixture of their raw, aggressive, progressive rock on Thermata, and then their more polished progressive rock on Sound Awake. It was kind of combining those 2 sounds into something that sounded really great. So for those of you in Western Australia and South Africa who get to see those shows, you guys are lucky. If I had the money, I'd be there, but I do not. Moving on from that, Good Charlotte announced the release date for their upcoming album. It's their first in 6 years, and it's going to be out on July 15th. I'm actually kind of excited for this one. They released a song last year, might have even been this year, called Makeshift Love, which I thought was alright. Their last album I thought was decent. I think it had a couple of good songs on it. There was a song they did with Sinister Gates and M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold, which I thought was really strong. But yeah, they are moving in that poppy direction, so we'll see if they've still got a bit of that punk rock in them when that album comes around in July. Moving on from that, Andy Black, the lead singer of Black Veil Brides, released a second song from his upcoming album, The Shadow Side. This one was called Stay Alive, and it features the brilliant vocals of Matt Skiba. Now, if you were listening, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Andy Black released the first single from the album called We Don't Have to Dance, and I thought it was alright. And this song, I think, is better than We Don't Have to Dance, but I think it's also not a brilliant song. I'm yet to be sold on this album from anything that's been released from it. So I think these songs are going to sit better in an album environment. I think in a full-length album of these types of songs, they will fit in better, but just as standalone songs, I'm not really engaging with them so far. Matt Skiba's vocals are very different on this song as well. It's not that usual tone of voice that he has, but at the same time, the chorus is great. I really like the chorus. I don't think Skiba should have sung the second chorus. I think it should have gone back to Andy singing it. But yeah, other than that, it's a good song. I think the production is rough in places on it, however. Which is odd for John Feldman because he's usually really on point with his production. So this song just seemed a bit messy production-wise, but other than that, yeah, the song's pretty good, and I'm really excited to hear The Shadow Side. I think it's next month it comes out. And finally, in news/singles, Switchfoot surprised members of their mailing list this week with a free download of a song called Light and Heavy. Now, this song is a B-side from when they recorded their album Hello Hurricane, in my opinion, their best album. And this song is actually very different from Hello Hurricane, and it doesn't surprise me that it was left off it. That's not saying it's a bad song. I think it's a great song. I think it's a really brilliant song. But it reminds me of the New Way to Be Human album. It's just got that stripped back, raw, early 2000s sound to it, which I really like. It's good to hear them go back to what they used to do. And as always, John Foreman's vocals are brilliant as always, because he never puts in a bad vocal performance. So all in all, I think it's a good song. It's in no way an indicator of what their upcoming album is going to be sonically. I think it was just a song that they put out to tide fans over until the album comes out. Speaking of which, Tim Foreman, the bass player of the band, put out a tweet yesterday saying that the album is now done. So that's really, really exciting. Switchfoot are one of my favorite bands of all time. So I'm really excited to hear how this album sounds. All right, moving right along to album reviews. We have the second album, the sophomore album from Japanese metal group, Baby Metal. For those of you listening to the podcast, you wouldn't have seen my finger quotations with that. But yeah, Baby Metal have been a very controversial act since they came out. I'm not going to call them a band because I don't really see them as one. I see them as an act. And honestly, I was going into this album with pretty high expectations. I hated the first album. I didn't like it at all. I think Chocolate was decent. It was listenable, but I just thought it was just a gimmick. Something that people are going to get into because it's so far different from everything else. So I went to this album with high expectations, and I was disappointed. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad album, because it's not. It's a good album, but it's not... How to put this? It's a good event rock album. So if you don't know what I mean by that, look at a band like Rammstein. Now, Rammstein write better music than Baby Metal, in my opinion, but they write music for their live shows. They write music that will just accompany what they do live really, really well. And I think that's exactly what Baby Metal have done with this album. I think the metal in the songs is really good. No song beats Karate though, which is disappointing because, I mean, Karate is a great song. It's got a great melody and is so catchy, it just gets in your head. And I really hoped that it was going to be an album full of songs like that, but I didn't feel that at all. And overall, the vocals are okay. The metal is really good throughout the entire album, but I think the vocals sometimes just don't fit. Actually, they don't fit a lot of the time. They feel like they're just thrown on the top without any real thought. Whereas when you listen to Karate, you can tell that the vocals were written specifically to go with those instrumentals. Like they flow really well and they sit in the mix really well, whereas other songs in this album just don't do that. The album is also way too long. If it was 8 or 9 songs, I'd be giving it a better review, but it's 13 songs and it's way too long for this kind of thing. Because it gets tiring to listen to and all the songs start to sound the same. So some of the good songs, I'll give you my top 3 now. They're Road to Resistance, the opening track, which just so much pace straight out of the gate. Second is also, as I've mentioned before, Karate, which is the highlight of the album. It's definitely the best song. And then I actually think the final track, The One, is a really good song as well. I've heard other reviews say that that's one of the weaker songs on the album. I think they're only saying that because it's the last song on the album and you're really tired of it when that song comes on. So that last song actually made me go, oh, yeah, this is cool. And that song's actually all in English as well. But yeah, the length of the album starts to make all the songs blend together. And yeah, for a live orientated group, this is a good album because it'll accompany their live show really well. And I think people who see it live are going to appreciate it much more than me. It's not something that I'm just going to pop on the car and drive down the road to, same as I wouldn't do that to Rammstein. So altogether, I think it's about a 3 out of 5 for me. Not what I wanted, and kind of disappointing. All right, moving on from that, we've got the new album from Weezer, called Weezer, the White Album. So it's another self-titled effort from Weezer. I've never been a fan of Weezer at all. I only like 2 songs from them, really, and that's Surf Wax America and My Name is Jonas. I just find them really boring to listen to, and the only reason I listened to this album this week is because I thought, well, I've started a podcast now I need to review everything, really. So I just got it and checked it out, and it is spectacularly good, this album. It is so good. Just everything about it. It's just a brilliant rock album with amazing melodies and amazing instrumentals that all work together to make amazing songs. Rivers is on fire in this album. Rivers Cuomo, their lead singer. His melodies throughout this entire album are amazing. Every single song is a single. I can't stress that enough. Every single song deserves to be a single. If they promote this album for 3 years and just release a single every couple of months, I'll never get bored. And this is coming from a non-Weezer fan. I can't even imagine how Weezer fans are feeling right now because it's just brilliant. The guitar playing is so solid in this album. And there's even tracks like one called Thank God for Girls, which is like 21 Pilots done how 21 Pilots should be done. Like just done really, really well. And the vocals and the lyrics in this album really, really elevate it and make it go from a good album to a great album. And I can't stress enough how good it is. The instrumentals on the album are written so impeccably and they work together to make an album that just flows and flows and flows perfectly. It's also the perfect length for an album like this. Whereas before I said the Baby Metal album was way too long, 13 tracks too long for something like that. This is 10 tracks long and it's the perfect time. Like you never get bored throughout this entire album. There's no down point in this album. It all just gets better and better and better. And I just, the only downside is that I want more, which just goes completely against what I just said about it being the perfect length. But I just want more. I want more of this kind of song. I want more of this kind of album that just has songs that you are singing for days and days and days. It is hit number 3 on my albums of the year so far. I don't know if that'll go higher as I keep listening to it, because at number 1 and number 2 is Steven Wilson and Creeper at the moment. But a full album, it is the number 1 album of the year so far, because those top 2 in mine are EPs. So it is album of the year for me at the moment. And the top 3 tracks is so hard to pick. But I did pick them, and they are LA Girls is one of them. King of the World is another one. And the other one is the second track. The name is escaping me right now. But it's brilliant as well. The whole album just, I can't fault it at all. So it's a 5 out of 5 for me. Like I can't give it less than that because it's just perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's from a person who really dislikes Weezer. So make sure you go and check that album. It is brilliant, and you really need to hear it. All right, so that's the music for this week. It's been a great week. Weezer really made this week amazing for me. So yeah, make sure you go check out that album. Moving on now, we're going to go on to some movie stuff that came out this week. There wasn't a lot. In fact, I struggled to get anything. So we're just going to focus on a couple of trailers that came out this week. Starting off with the trailer for The Conjuring 2. This trailer is great. I'm a huge fan of the first Conjuring. I think it's honestly one of the best horror movies of the last 10 years. It doesn't rely on jump scares or any of that bullshit that all the horror movies rely on now. It relies on suspense and emotion and genuinely scary things that really drove the story along, and it was directed impeccably by James Wan, and he returns for The Conjuring 2, and it starts out with Ed and Lorraine Warren sitting around a table with a priest listening to this tape of what sounds like an old man, and the priest goes, "That's an 11-year-old girl," and you're like, "Oh, yeah, this is gonna be, let's get to that story now." And they show some amazing scenes. There's a scary nun that is gonna be haunting you for the rest of your life. Just crosses turning upside down, and just what I liked about this trailer is it didn't give away much of the story. It just used visuals to hook you in. And I love trailers like that. I love trailers that don't give away too much and purely use visuals to lock you in. And I'm locked into this movie. I think it's going to be brilliant. If The Conjuring's anything to go by, then this could be once again one of the best horror movies of the last 10 years. So I'm really excited for that. Make sure you go onto YouTube and check out that trailer. And second, we had 2 trailers come out for the Lego Batman movie, which is coming out in 2017. Stars the vocals of Will Arnett being Batman, and these trailers were hilarious. Just seeing Batman portrayed in that way, he was one of the best bits of the Lego movie, and having the same voice actor come back and voice this character that I think is going to be one of the best movies of next year. Just bits where he kicks Alfred into a piano. He starts doing beatboxing while singing the Batman theme from the Adam West Batman, and all this just funny stuff. Seeing him put a lobster in the microwave and just watch that go for a bit. It's cheesy humor that really hits well and isn't overdone, but I'm really excited for this movie. Make sure you go and check those 2 trailers out. I think it's going to be an amazing film. So go check that out. Up next, we've got some TV review going on. Star Wars Rebels. They had their season 2 finale this week. It was called Twilight of the Apprentice Parts 1 and 2. It was an hour-long special. And it was incredible. The introduction of Darth Maul back into the universe after being in Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano's story, seeing the Inquisitors all just get demolished by the Jedi, and Ezra playing with the dark side a lot. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to go evil. I think he's definitely going to turn dark. And it was highlighted in this episode. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes Maul's apprentice, because Maul seems to have this hold over him. Maul's only been in this 2-part episode, and already has drawn Ezra in, and I think he's going to draw him in again. I think Maul's going to be a huge part of season 3. And then it concluding with Ahsoka Tano versus Darth Vader. what a great scene. And everyone thought that Ahsoka was going to die this season in this final battle with Vader, because if you've watched the Clone Wars, you know that she was the apprentice of Anakin before he turned. And this whole episode was leading to her dying. And you see just some visuals at the end of the episode which show that she is alive still and she's walking away, which I don't think is a cop-out because they didn't really build her up enough this season to kill her off. But I think she will be killed off next season. And there are rumors going around that next season may be the last season. So if that is the case, I think a lot of people are going to die next season. So all in all, I thought it was a brilliant episode. I couldn't really fault it. I was glued to the TV for the whole hour, and just a really, really good finale for Star Wars Rebels Season 2. And finally, this week, I said sometimes we'd do sport, and there's been a lot of sporting news in the UFC this week. So, starting right off a couple of days ago, UFC 200 was announced. Now, there's been a lot of rumors going on around UFC 200. Who is McGregor going to face? Will he be defending his title? Will he be going against Diaz again? And those questions have been answered. McGregor will not be defending his title. He will be rematching with Nate Diaz at 170 once again, while Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo will be fighting as a co-headliner for the interim title. Pretty much meaning they will fight for number one contendership, because honestly, I think that's a good way to do it, because they both deserve a fight against McGregor. And trying to decide who was going to get that first was proving to be difficult, I think. So having them fight for the interim title, otherwise known as the number one contendership, in my opinion, I think is a really, really cool thing. I think it's going to be a great fight. They've already fought before, which Aldo won, but I think Edgar's got a lot more experience now, and Aldo doesn't fight that much. So Edgar might get the win here, and if not, it'll be really interesting to see a McGregor-Aldo rematch. But let's talk about McGregor and Diaz. I'm a huge McGregor fan. He is great for the UFC, and just his personality really resonates with me and his attitude towards life. And he's also a brilliant fighter, and he showed that for a long time. He even showed that in the last Diaz fight. Like, he was fighting great. I think he just burnt himself out and made some bad decisions. Having said all that, I'm not feeling good about this match. I honestly can't see McGregor winning it. And it could potentially threaten his career as well. And I think it was a bad move on the side of the UFC to allow the match to happen. I know McGregor was persistent about it. Dana White has said as much, but Dana White really needs to think about, I'm putting my money boy on the line here. The guy that brings in the most cash for that company, draws in the biggest audiences. If he loses this match, then he's 0-2. It's his second loss in a row. And then he has to fight either Aldo or Edgar. And if he then loses to them, that'll be 3 losses in a row. He will have lost his title. And all the shine is gone from McGregor. All that... I just don't see it as a good idea to risk your moneymaker like that. Having said that, I'm completely behind McGregor. I think he can win it. I think if he changes his game plan and really focuses on what was working against Diaz and what wasn't, then he can pick apart Diaz for 5 rounds. He's not going to knock him out. He needs to be able to go 5 rounds. He needs to have that stamina, which he didn't have in the first fight. And so it'll be really interesting to see what goes down and the fallout from UFC 200. So there'll be lots of build up to that fight in July. So keep checking back here, and I'll be continuously talking about it. Also, in UFC news, UFC 197, which is coming up this month, there has been some major news out of the Daniel Cormier camp. He has pulled out due to a shin injury, which is going to see him sidelined for about 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm really bummed about that, man. I was so excited for this Jones-Cormier fight. Jones has become up there with McGregor for one of my favourite fighters at the moment. I really love his attitude to fighting. His attitude outside of fighting, maybe not so much. But to see him come back from where he was and take back his title would have been really good to see. But Cormier will be replaced by Ovince St. Preux. He is the number 6 seed in that weight division. And John Jones is the number 1, obviously. So it'll still be a good fight. I think Jones is going to walk away with it really easily. I think he's, just got his eyes on what he wants, which is his title back, and nothing's going to stand in his way. So I feel bad for St. Preux. He's not going to win. But then again, it's fighting. You never know what's going to happen. But I can't see Jones losing. He's never lost before. He's only ever been disqualified once with a stupid fucking 12-6 elbow, which I don't even know why that's a rule. But anyway, it'll still be a good fight to watch. And then Jones will get his shot at Cormier eventually if he doesn't pull out again. It just seems a bit fishy to me, if I'm honest. And that's the show for this week. It's a bit of a longer one this week. Thank you all so much for listening. I had a great time again this week. If you want to jump on here and co-host with me one time, make sure you hit me up. I'll have my email address down below. It'll be really cool to be able to talk to someone about the stuff going on throughout the weeks. And so if you want to do that, hit me up. Thank you all so much for listening this week. I'm going to leave you with a song from the band that is co-headlining with us at the Bald Face Stag. They're not on the poster as co-headliners, but really they're going to be playing the same time at the same set length as us. So they're a really great instrumental progressive rock band. They're called Genetics. This is their new single, Episteme. Thank you all for listening today, and I'll see you next time. Fresh Currents.